Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting for May 1st, May Day, 2007. Would you please all stand and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving along to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon by the board at any one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion. Any board member? Any staff member?
Item number 8, please.
Item number 8. Any member of the public? Can I have a motion on the remainder?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Mr. Mitchell. Oops, I forgot.
Thank you. Just wanted to update you on item 8. That is an FAA grant application that we have forwarded to the FAA for the additional $700,000. This project is on a fast track. Bids are opening up this Thursday at 3 o'clock. We had a walkthrough with the contractors last week. It will take, because this is a significant amount of money, we're asking the FAA for over and above our annual allocation. It will probably take us between 30 and 45 days to put all of the funding together for this project, depending upon what the bid results are on Thursday. So at the time we do the bid award, we will ask your board for a bid award, accepting the grant offer from the FAA at that time, and also doing a construction administration contract. So all of those things will all be part of the packet. We feel confident, our office that and our airport manager, that this is a project we can move forward with. The FAA has given us preliminary indication that they will give us this additional funding. Kathy Zaccanella is also here from the airport if you had any questions relating to this particular project.
I just want to give kudos, Tom, to you and Kathy Zaccanella for at least moving us this far along and trying to get the $700,000. I know the two of you have been working really hard. I know the people who utilize the airport have appreciated it.
It's a pretty good return on investment. We started with about $23,000. We got about $600,000 in grant money, and now we're asking for another $700,000 from the FAA. So we're going to turn
all
about
for the golden ring, Tom.
That's right.
Anyway,
Do you think they would build us a jail?
Well, we can always ask.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Any other comments?
I move this item.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Once again, I forgot to tell you the results of the closed sessions last week. So, results of closed sessions held at the meeting of April 24th, 2007. A closed session conference with labor negotiator under Government Code, Section 54957.6, Assistant CAO, HR Director, Calaveras County Sheriff's Association was canceled. A closed session conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9B1, County Counsel with no action taken. And there's no addendum this week. It's great. Okay.
Makes me pretty happy.
Okay, we stand adjourned until 10 minutes after 9. Okay, we'll bring the meeting back to order. Thank you. I'm going to remind folks, if you have a cell phone or pager with you, would you please turn the audible function off at this time? It's a little distracting, so if you take care of that for us, I'd appreciate it. At this time, we will go to public comment. These are for the time is for the public to make comments regarding issues that are not on today's agenda. Normally, we are trying to limit this to 5 minutes per person, 15 minutes per topic. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to an item not on today's agenda?
What? Kathy Zancanella from Calaveras County Airport. I forgot to sign in last time they did this.
Don't let it happen again. Okay.
Well, you'll have to repeat your statements from earlier.
I just very quickly wanted to express my thanks to the whole county, but to any of you that were at Airport Day on Saturday, it was a sensational day. We must have had 150 airplanes fly in, 500 people. I upped that a little bit, I guess. But it was a great day, one of the best we've ever had. And for you that were there, I did see Marita. Tom tried to tell me he was there, and probably he was.
I was.
I tried to get in but couldn't get parking.
Actually, the parking on the road wasn't nearly as bad as up on the airfield. I don't think I could have got 2 more airplanes on there that day.
I waved at you from the Relay for Life.
Sorry I interrupted your speech, but you know. Anyway, thank you all. It was a wonderful day.
Great, thank you, Kev.
My name is Jack Mancinelli. I live at 523 Live Oak Court, not Live Oak Drive. That's the issue at hand here. After 2 years not hearing from anyone, we contacted the county. In any event, the person we contacted said, "We don't have you. You don't exist." I transferred from Copperopolis to here. So I anticipated that the base property tax would remain transferred over from here, from Copperopolis to our place here. It's basic. All the years that I'm aware of, it's the way it worked in the county. They said, "Well, sorry, but we weren't able to contact you, so therefore we're not only going to charge you for your tax base, property tax base, what the base could have been, but the highest price of the home sold in your area." Now, I'm a World War II veteran, 87 years old. I live on a very limited income, and I don't need the county to take my money away. As a matter of fact, according to statistics, I should be here asking for money. Because at my age and at my income, I belong on a list of those who get money from the county. I'm not asking for money from the county. All I'm asking for is that we get back to someone who could say, this has to be corrected, undo what was done in my dishonor. So therefore, that's why I'm here today, and I'm saying what can be done, because the buck stops here. There's no other place I can go. What can be done to resolve that problem?
Okay. Why don't you leave your name and telephone number and address?
I have it on a list and a telephone number.
And your telephone number. And Jim, maybe we could get somebody from county council to look and see what the legal status is on that.
I'd be happy to do that. I'd like to start with the assessor's office.
Yeah. Okay, but I think it's going to come down to a legal question of transferring your base year value when you move. And my understanding is you can do that within the county. I guess the question is, I think it has to be a like property, which means it has to be close to the same value. And if it's an increase in value, then I think the increase gets taxed at the new rate. I'm not quite certain. Help me here. But anyway, leave your name, telephone, and address, and somebody from county council's office will get a hold of you, find out exactly what your circumstances are, and research the law, talk to the assessor, and see if we can get this straightened out. But your feeling is, as I understand it, is that the problem was that
the mail was returned to me.
The mail never made it to you because they were addressing it to Live Oak Court, and it should have been addressed Drive. So you never got any of the notices.
And I may add, while this is going on, they're building our house, and the inspectors are going to Live Oak Drive. So you see,
Okay.
Look, the county needs fixed.
Okay,
And
we're going to
since
see
the
what we
buck-
can do to get that
Since
fixed.
the buck stops here,
Okay.
I'm asking for the county to fix it.
Okay, we'll
And
see
I
what
thank you very
we'll
much.
see what we can do, and I think there is even a veterans consideration that goes, I think, with that law.
Yes, and that was
Okay.
ignored. Everything was ignored. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, they ignored everything excepting that I owed them money.
Yeah, well, welcome to the government.
I'll give you a call, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Since you can fix very little up here, please fix that one.
We'll do our best.
Morning.
Good morning, Frank.
I am here because of
State your name for the record, Frank,
Ginger.
and sign in, please.
And you know
Okay.
what? I am here because there's an Indian up in Pine Grove that I was talking to. I thought we were going to settle all this code enforcement stuff, get rid of all the bad people and put in good people. I hear from the Indian he's scared to come here. I'm not. He's getting picked on by the code enforcement, the new code enforcement lady that's going on his property, going in his house without permission. I'm going to go to code enforcement right after I leave here. I'm just letting people know that's not right. I thought we were going to get rid of all this corruption and all this other stuff, and it's still here. So I've come over here today in his behalf to stand up for him. I told him to go to the Indian Bureau of Investigations, whatever's necessary. But come on, they did it to me for $6,000, and it was wrong, and the guy lied. You know what? Off. Okay, I'm eating that, but you know what? I'm still going to stand up for the little guy. And this guy's a little guy. He just wants to have the American dream and live on his own property. So I come to you to let somebody know what's happening up there with the new code enforcement. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Good morning. My name is Rosemary Wilson. As you probably remember from last week, I spoke about Parkinson's Awareness Month. At the time, my partner in crime, Sarah Johnson, was unable to attend, but I'd like to introduce her to you just briefly this morning. And these are some items for the supervisors and the letter for Supervisor Cordina. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to meet you all, and I want to thank you for making April Parkinson's Awareness Month in Calaveras County. The 2 million of us in this country who have Parkinson's disease really appreciate your recognizing this disorder and giving us an opportunity to talk with the public about it. I'm going to read the letter I'm submitting to the board today. To Mr. Bill Claudino, blah, 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 blah. April is Parkinson's Awareness Month resolution. Dear Supervisor Claudino, on behalf of the many people in this area, as well as the nearly 2 million Americans who suffer from Parkinson's disease, thank you from the bottom of my heart for creating such a kind and caring resolution to assist us in increasing awareness of and education about this devastating disorder. Kudos to Jeannie Boyce and her staff, as well as Supervisor Walensky for their sponsorship, and to Rosemary Wilson, official PDL, for all of her help and for speaking to you in my absence. We truly appreciate your support and cooperation extended to us in this effort, and now it would be wonderful if each one of you could help us by scheduling a presentation at a club, group, organization, or association you belong to so that we can let them know about Parkinson's disease. Real quickly, we're doing our second public talk in Calaveras County at the Senior Center later this month. We'd like to do Parkinson's from a patient's point of view presentations. Everyone in the county, if we have the opportunity, and you can help us do that. We provide all the support services free to Parkinson's patients, their caregivers, family, friends, in both Amador and Calaveras County. The kinds of things we do are patient advocacy and outreach, getting phone calls and seeking out people with PD, hearing from them when they're first diagnosed, getting them literature from the foundations. We provide educational presentations as well as in-service presentations to medical personnel. We have literature from every Parkinson's disease foundation stacked in my house so that when someone needs it, I can hand deliver it to them, and they don't have to call an 800 number and wait for something that may never arrive. Of course, there are some costs in doing this, and for 2 years, that's all come out of my disability check, but things are a little different now. We do have a 501c3 status under the ACF in Amador County, so donations can now be made tax-free. And the kinds of costs are not really fancy. It's long-distance calls, internet service. The greatest challenge is running out of ink cartridges and paper to print the materials. So if you have any fundraising ideas, we'd love to hear them. So we're inviting all individuals, organizations, businesses to please, if you need a program for your breakfast, lunch, or dinner meeting, let us know. We'd be happy to do it. And we can do it in a really pleasant way and impart some serious information. Proactive Parkinson's Project came into being when I was diagnosed. No one to call. People I did call locally, regionally, nationally, send you stuff right away. Don't worry about it. They never did. And I realized no one should have to go through this alone. So we're trying now to reach out to people who need us. The neurologist in this area says that there are approximately 400 to 500 people in Amador and Calaveras with PD. Of course, privacy laws make that impossible to check out. But if you can help us help someone, please do that. We're giving you each a copy of the latest DVD on Parkinson's disease, Straight Talk and Honest Hope. Please pass it on to someone who needs it, and I have hundreds more if you know someone else who needs it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the kudos, but thank you even more for your dedication. And we will, this invitation is, of course, extended to anybody in the room. If you belong to an organization or a group that could host a presentation, I believe you should do so. And this board will certainly endeavor to do that. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dale Tudor, and I represent the Sacramento Wheelmen. And our bike ride is going to come here next month. It's called the Sierra Century. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about it, but we're here to inform the public and the press today. I want to let you know that safety is our main concern, and we've tried to do a lot of things by posting road segment notifications to all the press so that they can give that to the community. We had an emergency personnel meeting about 2 weeks ago with all the fire departments, police departments, with a package to them, letting them know all the important phone numbers, where we're going to be, and any information they could possibly do to coordinate any emergency things that they might have on their minds. So, and also I'm here to answer any questions you might have about our bike ride. We hope it's going to be a great success, and be welcome back year after year.
Mr. Tudor, for the benefit of the folks here and also those that watch this on cable TV, can you give us sort of the time parameter and the course that you will be traveling?
Yeah, we'll be starting at Ironstone Vineyards and making a figure eight up to West Point, and then back through Mountain Ranch and up Murphy's Grade Road. And we'll be starting at 6 in the morning and be done by 5 at night.
Okay, thank you. Did you sign in?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much.
Good, thank you. Any questions the president might have, I'll be out here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Marilyn Rowland for the record, and I'm back.
Welcome.
Hopefully on a better note, but I would like to call to the board's attention and to the public's that we have started a Foothill Firefighters Support Assistant Group for the upcoming election for the fire board. The 4 positions that are available by ballot only, and it is coming up May 7th through June 1st for the public to write in their little resumes to get on the board and become elected. This is a very important part in our district to get some new members and some new focus and people that are qualified to run the Foothill Fire Board with the numerous problems we've had in the past. Anyone that is interested, it will be posted in the newspaper. The other thing is that I would like to remind this board, I have a couple problems with the Foothill Fire Board, and what it really has become is the old Burson Fire Board. I'm hoping to turn that around to become the new Foothill Fire Board for the benefit of the people and the taxpayers. Jenny Lind Fire Department, I have a concern there too, because not too long ago, many years ago, they voted to pass and got the people's vote for a fire station. In lieu of the fire station, the board took the money and bought, they passed, the people passed a vote to buy a fire station. The board went and took the money and bought fire equipment, and then took a loan on the fire equipment to buy and pay for the station. So I have 2 concerns there, you know. The people that voted were kind of let down, and Jenny Lind Fire Department was kind of saying in some words that they don't have the support of the people. Well, I wonder why. You can't vote one way and have your board directors taking the money and spending it for something else that the vote was for. The other item that I wanted to address today was your general plan meeting that I attended, in which I felt that the people there had very great issues that was brought forth to this board. My one concern that I saw was Stephanie Marino questioning, where do you want me to go? Where's my direction? What do you want me to do? That is a major problem, because I have read the JAS report, and I encourage everyone to read the JAS report, and if you cannot find it, please let me know at 772-2945. This is a very important report because it shows the inadequacies of the Building and Planning Department. And how can this woman or anyone else from the past or now function without this JAS report corrected? The lady needs direction. You are the board. Give her the tools to work with. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alice Giuliani, and for the past 15 years I have been cultivating 1 acre of our land and bringing my fresh produce and vegetables to the farmers market. Farming on a small scale and according to sustainable organic principles demands a great deal of time and labor. Due to rising costs and fees, farming on this small scale has become an increasing financial struggle. Calaveras County has a very small handful of growers working on small parcels of land like mine, 1 acre. Approximately 8 to 10 of these growers request an annual certificate that allows us to participate in the farmers market. 2 years ago, you voted to initiate certificate fees and scale fees. The next year, you voted to increase that fee, a total increase of 300%. And I have been told that a proposal to raise fees again would become before you again this month for this coming year. A woman, Ella Wheeler Wilcox, said, excuse me, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. To sin by silence when we should protest makes cowards of men. I've plucked my courage to protest. Our growers cannot support these fees, and I know of 3 families willing to give up. If you believe that these small family growers are providing our county with a great service, then I believe you should encourage them and support them. I figured out approximately $700 is collected in fees from this small group of growers. Can this amount make a big difference to the general fund? On the other hand, this money makes an enormous difference to the family growers. I propose that an exemption of the certificate fees be made to families working on 5 acres or less, and that the scale fees be waived if growers bring their scales to the agricultural department. To provide even greater support, what if a farmers market was set up with the largest employer in the county, our government center? I see this as a win-win situation, and the produce not sold could be given or sold at half the price to our food bank. And I have brought my produce for years to our food bank. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Alice. At the time this is evaluated this year, if you'll attend that meeting.
Good morning. My name is Christine Louise, and I too am here in support of the same issue that Alice spoke about. I've been an organic grower in this county for 13 years, and let me just tell you, this work is bone hard. I don't know how many of you, besides Mr. Walensky, have gardens, but there's no good soil in the foothills here. You have to create it. You know, it's pretty darn difficult to grow crops in the winter. We people who farm this land, we know the secrets of how to grow food all year round. We know how to create soil. I know the secrets of the seeds. I have locally adapted seeds, and I'm really tired of being kicked in the teeth by bureaucracy and giving more obstacles to the work that's already bone hard. I stood there in Angels Camp this summer at the startup farmers market and came home with less than $100. How many weeks in a row? That's an abomination. I was kicked out of the Sonora market because of bureaucracy, because my seed packages had substandard information on them. For crying out loud, I'm a single woman. I live on an 85-acre ranch that I run myself. I have 100 fruit trees. And so I'm here to please ask you, reduce these fees. Take them away. Or at the very minimum, bring it back to $20. That's somewhat reasonable. You know, we don't have money in the spring. We're just getting started again. And that's when these fees are due. And so, you know, we have some important skills here in this community that I'd like to see continue. And if you make it difficult for us, I personally will just move my traveling fund show elsewhere. I don't need the county's fees. But I think you need us growers. So I would appreciate it if you would reduce them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Norman Gunsel. I am a small farmer in Mountain Ranch, and I'm here in support of the same issue that Alice and Christine are here about. What inspires us to continue being small farmers is not the money we make, it's the contribution we're bringing to the community. And we hear that a lot from our customers. And when we listen to outside people who live outside the area, one of the things they really like about this county is the open spaces and the fact that there are small farmers and ranchers out here still doing this. And we understand that we are a very important part of this, and we'd like the county to recognize that. One thing the county could do is to lower these fees, which are a burden to us. There's another grower that would have liked to have been here today who couldn't make it because I believe they're hospitalized. This is J.J. Gonzalez, who grows blueberries in Valley Springs. And he wrote this short note that I would like to read to you at this time. Good day, my name is J.J. Gonzalez. I have been farming 1 acre of blueberries in western Calaveras since 2002. I echo the remarks of Ms. Giuliani in that the producer's fees, scales, and certificate fees are excessive and a huge burden to small growers, 5 acres, 5 or less farmed acres. In my opinion, these fees discourage grassroots efforts of individuals to promote agriculture and agricultural diversity in the county. It is my impression that the county seeks to retain its open space and agricultural heritage during this time of growth and development. I believe these fee increases are contradictory to this philosophy by extinguishing the spirit or dampening the entrepreneur visions of specialty farming within the county. I support the proposal by Ms. Giuliani in that an exemption of the certification fees be made to farms cultivating 5 acres or less, and that the scale fees be waived if the grower brings their scales into the agricultural department for certification. This was written by J.J. Gonzalez, soil scientist, owner, and grower in Valley Springs. And thank you for listening to us.
Thank you, Norman, and thank you all for bringing your concerns to this board. And as I said, when this is an agendized item, it will be open for some interesting discussion. So come on back.
Bill, if I might be permitted, I'm not going to be present for the date where this is coming before the board, so I'd like to at least make a couple of comments on this topic. The idea of fees requires an equal application and some kind of break even for the county. So I very much welcome the suggestion that we could save county time by people bringing their scales in, and that seems like a reasonable way to reduce it, and I would hope we'd take a look at that mechanism for the scale fee. Relating to the farmers markets, we know that there are good farmers markets in Tuolumne County and to some extent in Amador, and the real make or break of farmers markets is the first 4 or 5 years. Do you get critical mass? Do you get enough people sort of putting their toe in the water and then jumping in to give enough reason for customers to come on a regular basis over a sustained period of time? So whether our policies, our fee policies, mitigate toward a successful farmers market at its inception has a lot to do with how many fees we'll collect in the end. That is, if we kill our farmers markets before they actually get that critical mass, then in fact we're losing money over the long term. So I hope people will consider that when they look at this, and that there may be a graduated mechanism that could ultimately have the county having more fees with less burden and less likelihood of killing a farmer's market before it has a chance to be successful. We've had a number of startups in this county which have failed, leading to a marketing pattern similar to our shopping patterns. We go to Amador and Tuolumne rather than build something indigenous and local. So that's my hope, is that when I'm gone on the 24th, as you consider it, that will be something we think about. What is the policy implication of what we're doing, and can we break even over a longer term rather than try to front-load it in a way that kills the potential golden goose. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Steve. Any other member of the public that wishes to address this board on an item not on the agenda this morning? Okay, moving along, moving along to item number 10, discussion and possible action regarding resolution authorizing changes to position control list for CalWorks and Human Services Agency.
Good morning, Francine Osborne, Human Resources Administrative Office. The item before you is actually a proposal from the CalWorks and Human Services Agency. A couple of months ago, the department actually presented a study session that outlined the proposal to make enormous changes in their department, which would lead them into the future. Part of the goal of the department was really to minimize the vacancies, because they're part of the merit system, and they were experiencing high numbers of vacancies. And so by minimizing the vacancies, it would also maximize the revenue. This is probably the largest reorg I've worked on. I think the proposal to you today, while it's larger than was originally proposed, is sound. I think it will assist the department for the next couple of years. The great thing is that Calaveras County employees that work for CalWorks and Human Services as part of the merit systems are not in equality with Calaveras County employees. So this now actually makes them equal with their counterparts. It also has built-in career and succession ladders, and we're proud to offer this today. It was a lot of hard work. We had to go back to the drawing board numerous times, meet with the department, but we think the end result is a great product, and so we're asking for your approval. There are a couple of little minimum things that I'd like to amend the resolution to add 2 more paragraphs, and Mary brought that, and I think part of the reason to do that, it is practice when we make changes to a salary structure to move those employees in there, but we believe this language will assist us in being consistent and be very clear so that we don't get criticized down the future. And it's a lot of information. It touches a lot of positions. Again, more that were originally proposed. It's really massive. And so instead of going through each and every one of the changes, if you have any questions, both Mary and I are here and available to answer those for you.
Yes, comments from the board? Sorry.
With the board waiving the section of the MOU, does it then go to SEIU for their agreement?
This would actually set it in place. I would actually recommend that we do contact them and let them know that we are doing this. They do know that this is in the process.
And
I haven't gotten any negative feedback at all.
okay. And 2, under fiscal impact, it said there's no additional for 0607, but it doesn't say anything about 0708.
And I knew you were going to ask that, so Shirley is here and so is Mary. And because it's so massive, we actually asked them to go back because of the additional changes that we proposed, because there were some overlapping. We increased some positions so that there actually was growth. We included other higher level positions, and so I actually put the burden on the department to come back and give you that number, Marita.
Mary Sawicki, Director of Calaveras Works Human Service Agency. Our proposal for the upcoming year is we are holding 3 positions vacant that we have in your board memo on the budget. That will be a vocational assistance, 1 position in the fiscal, and the 3rd one is a staff analyst position. Those all are currently vacant and will remain so. The second part is this past year, we received 2 years' worth of additional funding for caseload growth in the amount of $126,000. We are holding that money also for this particular issue. The third issue is that we received, this past year, we agreed all the welfare directors in the state to have a 10% reduction in our Calaveras Works allocation. That will be restored next year as well. So we have more than sufficient fund to cover this particular issue. The other part of it is we also are recommending, by asking you to waive that one particular section, is the present MOU says, for example, that if somebody is on a C-step, and you change the salary range, you're going to recommend that they go to the C-step in the new one. We are not. What we are recommending is roughly about a 5% increase, so that if they're on a C with an increase, they may actually wind up to be on a B in the new salary range. So it's going to be a gradual movement into the new salary range.
And the MOU does say that they have to experience at least a minimum, so we aren't violating any MOU language. We just want to be real clear that the traditional practice, we may deviate from that so that they receive the 5% increase as the MOU states. But we want to be clear that it wouldn't just be C to C. The old structure, that's how it was proposed, and it didn't allow for as much growth.
So it's where the money fits is where the level,
exactly.
There they go.
That is correct.
Okay.
And in the MOU, it says specifically that, like, for example, a C to a C would be unless waived by the Board of Supervisors, and that's why we're asking your permission to do the waiver.
On the 3 positions you're going to hold vacant,
yes.
Are those not positions you need?
We may need them long range, but we made other arrangements for those positions for the upcoming year.
And the 10%
is from the Calaveras work. The Calaveras, CalWorks allocation, and that exact amount.
But that's non-general fund. Correct?
No, all of these are grant funded.
Okay, grant funded.
None of this will come any different from, no more from the general fund.
Okay, so that was really what my question was, is the impact next year on the
we have the funding for next year, and then beyond that, we will make whatever adjustments we need to continue. The main thing is we have to have the positions filled, and like in the social work positions, we've had 3 recruitments. We have not received any qualified applicants. In fact, to be honest with you, no new applicants. We've got to make some changes. That's how we get our money.
Thank you, Mary.
I actually have a couple of questions, probably for Mary. You know of my fondness for vocational and training and getting people back to work. What are we losing, if anything, off of not filling the vocational position?
The vocational assistant actually worked in the child welfare, and it was like an aide. We've just made other arrangements for those particular duties. It will not change any of the employment and training work that we're presently doing.
That was my concern.
I also wanted to ask you, as I see this, what you're doing is, and I just wanted to confirm this, it looks to me like we've fallen, with these vacancy rates, 14, 15%, that we've fallen into a situation where we're sort of having a random reduction in services, and you're trying to have a more strategic reduction in your overhead to be able to become competitive. So we're actually becoming leaner, maybe more efficient, but competitive enough to recruit and retain. That's the basis for this?
That is correct. We also, as a community and an agency, the only way we receive funding is through our direct services. And this is primarily impacting all of the direct service workers so that we can both recruit and retain the existing workforce. Because we have lost workforce to other counties where they've been able to receive better wages and benefits.
And just so I understand fully, when we don't staff these particular positions that we can't recruit to, we wind up losing funds for services. So we wind up in a kind of diminishing return situation.
Yeah, we basically have to earn our income, and it's through the direct services. If we don't have workers there, we can't pull that money down.
Thank you.
I just want to add one last comment. As part of the study session, we had a conversation, and I did make note of it in the packet before you, that Mary and I have talked about the possibility of pulling out of the Merit Systems program. And there are some advantages, and in researching it, there are also some disadvantages. So when we kind of get through the budget, we'd like to come back and schedule a study session and present this to the board and let you decide if it would be beneficial to pull Calaveras County out of the Merit Systems and have them with the rest of the county.
Any further comments? Any other comments?
I move this resolution as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 11, discussion and possible action regarding resolution proclaiming May 2007 Older Americans Month in Calaveras County. CalWorks.
Good morning, Mary Sawicki, Director of Calaveras Works and Human Service Agency. This morning we are here asking you to proclaim May of 2007 as Older Americans Month in our county. This year's theme is Older Americans Making Choice for a Healthier Future. Our main concern is to recognize all of our senior citizens who have built this community, who make it better every day of the week for all of us, and recognize that they want to live here in this community in their own homes, and they want to continue to contribute. And so with that, we ask that you quite simply recognize them and proclaim May Older Americans Month.
Comments from the board?
I'll move this.
I'll second this.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Just a
Thank you, Mary.
reminder, the elder abuse workshop is tomorrow.
At
I think Marita should go because I'm tired of her picking on me.
I am, Tom.
She is the poster child.
She is the poster
And he is one of the oldest supervisors in all of California, at least by tenure.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
I think on that last vote, we should have been excluded. The board shouldn't be able to vote on that due to a conflict of interest due to our age.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to item 12, discussion and possible action regarding resolution authorizing changes to the position control list for auditor controller for fiscal year 2006-2007.
Francine Osborne again. The item before you was also part of a reorganization presented by the Auditor Controller's Office. The board gave direction for HR to look at several components that the board was interested in. This one is actually coming before you today because the position is vacant, and it's not unusual for HR to bring upgrades or downgrades before the board outside of the budget process. Before the department fills this position, we believe that since we already know that the department is interested in upgrading the position from a clerical 3 to an office tech, that this is a good time to do it so they can go out and recruit appropriate staff. And so we're asking that the board approve this restructure, which is really a reclass from a clerical 3 to an office technician. And just so you know, this is a fairly new job classification that was created by HR a couple of years ago that has become overwhelmingly popular with departments. It seems to have the skill set and experience that allows them to go beyond just clerical duties. And we are in support of this change.
What does the position do?
It works up front, but it also handles different and various projects for the department in the office. And I don't know, Linda, if you want to get specific.
Good morning.
Morning.
In addition to doing, the basic clerical, which would be the typing, filing, and answering the phone, this position is also needed to do some basic accounting. They are in charge of deposits. Today they were discounting cash in the treasury, And they also support and back up the accounting tech twos, which do all the claims payment for the county and the auditing. So we want to make this a more varied position to help support the entire office and utilize any downtime that this position would have in the clerical area.
Thank you.
It's really a step upgrade from the clerical 3, but not as high as like an administrative assistant.
Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries on a 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 13, discussion possible action regarding a minute order, approving a budget adjustment to the public access studio budget to provide funding for the purchase of emergency broadcast equipment. In addition, approve a budget transfer of $4,370 from the general fund contingencies by 4/5 vote to fund this action. Tom?
I think the letter is fairly self-explanatory. We moved forward with this project with the hope that we might be able to secure some additional funding for it. We were unable to find any grant sources that would help us out. We deferred some other purchases in the studio's budget to fund this, but unfortunately, there's some equipment that needs to be replaced in the studio, so we'd like to request the board's support to backfill this money that we've spent on the emergency broadcast system. This does allow us to, those of us that operate the emergency services network in the county, we can, from our homes, using our personal computers, send emergency broadcast messages on channels 7 and 9 in our public access studio. So it's a significant improvement to our emergency services network.
Do we have a status report on the contingency, general fund contingency?
Yes, on the very last page, each time we draw from contingencies, our new policy is we give you that recap of what we've spent so far this year.
Last ones.
And so that's our present status.
There it is. All right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I move this item.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries on a 5-0. There we go. Okay, before we have our public hearing, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
There it is. Thank you. Moving along to item number 14. This will be a public hearing and possible board action regarding 2005-125 zoning amendment and tentative parcel map for Sherry Shively. The applicant is requesting a zoning amendment from A1 general agriculture to RA residential agriculture on about 80 acres, having 80 acres plus or minus, having a general plan use designation of future single-family residential. Concurrently requested is approval to divide 80 plus or minus acres into 4 parcels at 5 acres minimum and a remainder at 60 acres plus or minus. The property is located at 5816 State Highway 12 on the north side, about 2 1/4 miles east of Wallace and 2 3/4 miles west of Burson. Mr. Selman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Robert Selman, Planning Director. You have before you the request as has been outlined. The county is asking you to take 3 actions. The first is the approval of a mitigated negative declaration, including 3 mitigation measures, which are included in your packet to address the issues that we have determined do need to be addressed environmentally. Second is the actual approval of the zone change. Staff would remind the board that the property currently is general plan future single-family residential, which is intended to be, under our general plan, 5-acre minimum parcel sizes with private sewage disposal systems and private water systems, wells. Third is the approval of the parcel map. The Planning Commission has reviewed this matter, has recommended your approval on all items. Staff is obviously, again, making that recommendation. We have, just in case we didn't catch it, We did have one minor mistake on the final resolution that we sent to you from the Planning Commission. It was the vote that was registered incorrectly. We have corrected and provided a correct copy to the clerk for the record so that it is correct. Unless your board has questions at this point, I will let you open the public hearing and we can address any subsequent questions.
Yeah. Any comments from the board at this time? Okay, in that case, I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone that is potentially going to speak to this issue, please stand and let the clerk swear you in. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. I'm
Morning.
Sherry Shively, and I'm here today to ask for your approval on my application. Everybody's done a great job, and I thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. Is that it?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I just got a question.
Sure.
Just to come up.
Come up to the podium, please, and identify yourself for the record and sign in. Thank you.
My name is Jane Napper, and I pardon my ignorance, but I just have one question on this. And it's not this particular map. But anyway, I was wondering if the property's been actually properly surveyed, because I do know there are some parcel maps that have not been properly surveyed. So that was my only question.
Mr. Chairman, I cannot speak to its current status. The application is for a parcel map that will require a survey prior to recording. So it may or may not be fully surveyed now. It is a requirement, other than the remainder, that the new parcels be surveyed.
So it will be.
They will be.
Good enough. Okay.
It is a requirement.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comment.
Do you have any comments, Bill?
You know, this looks pretty clean and simple to me. I think one of the things that is worthy of mention is that one of the big issues that comes before us with land divisions and projects of this sort is the destruction of oak trees or the mitigation of oak tree destruction. And I really want to compliment the applicant. This particular land division is going to destroy no oak trees, 0. So I think
because they've all been cut down before the application?
Like they do in Angels Camp?
no, that is not. I believe this property's been in this.
Oh, it's all right. You don't have to answer.
I think this. I would recommend you don't. I think this property's been in the same family for a number of years, and they're just taking care of business. So. And so anyway, I'll entertain a motion.
Ready for a motion?
Yeah.
Sure.
Just before you...
Sorry.
And I do as well.
Oh, okay. Questions?
Go ahead, Mayor.
Mr. Selman, I just want to make sure that water must be provided prior to the filing of the final map and before any parcels could be sold.
That is correct. The county's conditions, and if you give me a moment, I can turn to it. It should be the environmental health conditions.
Right.
We require
on each
approval
parcel
of water for each parcel to the approval of the Environmental Health Agency.
I know that.
Environmental Management Agency, excuse me. It's conditions 4, 4.1, and 4.2, depending upon which they use.
Well, a concern I had is you received a letter regarding the development in the Wallace area from the Department of Health Services. The number of equivalent dwelling units allowed for water, and Mr. Moss, who's head of our environmental health, has talked a number of times about how many straws do you dip into the aquifer system. So, you know, I mean, it's a critical issue down in that part of the county.
Actually, as a follow-up to this, is this west enough to be part of the aquifer, or is this still in the fissures? And
You would have to formally ask Mr. Moss, whether it's designated as our low water area, and I think it's close enough. It'd probably be on the fringe, if you would. But again, the thing we cannot guarantee is how long you can draw from the basin. We do have a requirement that there be a demonstration of adequate water at the time of approval of the map. And you'll remember last year, I believe it was, we changed our rules to greatly extend the amount of pumping and testing that was required in order to more fully demonstrate what sort of long-term production there was. I don't think any of us can see below the ground any better than the others, so it's always something of a guess, if you would. Science is helpful, but there is in no way of absolutely guaranteeing that individual wells will continue to sustain their use in the long term. We believe, and I think we've talked about it with your board, that ultimately we need to talk about public water from developed surface water sources to serve the future development of this county, and that will be an ultimate need. I think for a while, and in some areas perhaps it's a great while, groundwaters will sustain. In other areas, absolutely, we're going to have to go to public water systems and from surface water sources. And I don't have an answer as to when yet, thankfully.
Do you
when
have
the board mandates it, Bob?
When the board mandates it, it's when it'll happen.
That's when.
I would be interested in an answer to the question of when we need to begin to be thinking about that in relation to the projects that come before us. There is some finite limit to our possibilities in a low water area, and I'd sure like to know where that threshold might be found. And if we don't know, how do we find out before we make some kind of critical error that makes for a very difficult neighborhood?
We believe that this is really a general plan issue, and that is our current and nearest opportunity, because clearly the provision of water is critical for not just in the sense of public or water for individual consumption and sewage disposal systems, but there's also fire flows and all the other needs for adequate water systems. Those are mandatory components of your general plan. You have addressed it currently through county code. That is a review that is part of our background. We will be working with Mr. Moss and his information, as well as everybody else who wants to provide information on water. And that really is a general plan consideration, and hopefully in the very near future you'll have that addressed. And so you can add that as you would like to beyond that comment.
Stephanie Moreno, Director of Community Development. As Mr. Sullivan stated, this is going to be a crucial area that needs to be discussed during the general plan, is how we're going to manage future water supplies as related to new development. Wallace and Burson area is a key area for that. As you well know, we have homeowners that have water being trucked in order to meet their household needs. One option that you may take in an intern basis, and I'll just throw this out, you may want to ask council whether it's appropriate or not, but we'd like to recommend approval of this project and have it go forward. One possible option, if you're concerned about the water availability for these parcels, is to put a condition on that. CCWD is currently looking at master planning in that area. They hope to take a water line, I believe, if it proves feasible, down Highway 12 corridor to provide water to those people that are without on a long-term situation. If that water line indeed goes past these parcels, one condition might be that if and when a surface water supply develops for this area, that future homeowners on these new developments that we're approving be required to hook up. That might be one option that would start the process of putting some pressure on bringing surface water down there, and also provide a financing mechanism for CCWD eventually to know that there will be future homeowners that are required to hook up as we keep moving forward. So we allow development to continue, but know that eventually they'll end up on surface water in that area.
Stephanie, do you know where our CCWD is with their investigation into this? If we just-
They've hired a consulting firm to do master planning the area. We're working with them on that. We intend to try to work on that concurrently with the general plan update, because as you know, bringing water down that corridor is going to have a growth-inducing factor as well for the area. So we want to coordinate our efforts and make sure that that those policy issues are fully identified for the board to consider when they adopt the general plan. But they are working actively on it. They're a little bit ahead of us, so we've talked about maybe trying to coordinate it as part of the Valley Springs community planning process to make a larger planning area for water issues down there and work with them as part of the general plan update, bring it all in at one time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really think that, was it last year that we put a higher demand on approving of water? It was that was a good step in this direction, I believe. The test for availability of water was pretty lax, considering the growth increases that we've had, especially in the western part of this county. And I think that last year, reading over the criteria for proof of water guarantees that the aquifer or the geological considerations for getting water have been protected somewhat until another plan comes along, so I'm pretty comfortable with that. Any further comments?
I would just ask how the applicant would feel about putting a condition on that should CCWD run a line right by that there would be a requirement to hook up. Do you have any sentiments about that?
I feel that having good water is, of course, important. I don't have a negative thought about it. I think if that would be a good thing, that would be a good thing. If the wells, the property's been our family for a long time, not even up to 80. But we've never had any problems with our well. And and I know one of the requirements prior to recording the final map is the water has to meet certain requirements as far as 5 gallons per minute or something to that effect, and at a minimum. And I lost my train of thought. And it also has to be, they need to designate what area the property is in, if it's in low to moderate.
What zone it's in,
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. It's in Zone 1, actually, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the well produces now in excess of 20 gallons per minute. Is that correct? So it's a good well. But I would hate to force the decision on somebody that hasn't had a chance to evaluate that. That's a big decision.
That issue has been raised before, and previous county councils have said that we could not condition a map in that way. Is that correct?
I don't believe that you can. Janice is here in the room. She could comment on it, but I don't believe that that's...
Janice Elliott, County Council. I would suggest that you not condition this project that way. Instead, I would suggest that you direct staff to bring the issue back as how you want to process applications while we're updating the general plan, and perhaps whether or not there are certain types of applications that you would not want to approve on wells and septics while we're doing that. And there are other issues that have arisen, particularly after our study session last week, that both the Planning Commission and the Board probably need to be advised on what you should be doing and should not be doing while we update the general plan. With respect to this project, I don't think this particular condition is appropriate, primarily because once you have approved this project, they have certain vested rights, and the financial feasibility of hooking up to public water has not been part of this particular project.
Let me follow up on what I thought I heard a moment ago, which is that there are implications when we approve things during this particular moment in our planning process, that there are considerations that we need to think about as we approve projects. Do you see a reason for us to hold off on this pending that discussion, or do you see, do you suggest that we have a legal basis for proceeding today on this project and approve the recommendations of staff?
I think based on the record before you today, you could approve this project
As recommended.
as recommended by staff. Yes.
Russ?
Okay, I just have one question. I didn't have a chance to go look at the county standards for road template G, the minimum standard road. Is that a paved section?
No. It's a gravel surface road, 18-foot road bed, so it's 18 feet in width at the top surface, but it's not a paved section.
Okay, that's what I was fearing, because I have, when my phone rings, it's fairly frequently that it's people talking about, why didn't the county pave this road going to my house? I feel fairly strongly that could be, that's my only negative feeling about this application. I think it's consistent with what we're trying to accomplish down there, but I would like to hear somebody weigh in on the appropriateness of having these 4 parcels served with an unpaved road whenever other people may have constituents that are concerned about, for instance, recently we had that situation in the Circle 20 that they were trying to get everybody together to tax themselves to pave their roads, and it apparently failed. Bar 20. Bar 20, but it is I think that we have a certain responsibility that when these new parcels are created, that they have an all-weather for years type of a road surface to get to the parcels.
And we need to change the road ordinance.
Excuse me.
We probably should have a study session. If you want to do that, we should have a study session on it and have a discussion on it and allow the professional engineers and the professional people to come in and comment on the implications of that.
Yeah, I think, Russ, that your concerns have merit. However, as I see, there is a road maintenance agreement in here that will...
I mean, I don't think this would hold this up for
keep this in good shape.
Mr. Chairman.
Funding mechanism, yes.
Excuse me for interrupting. There is a slight misunderstanding. The proposed Spring Hill Road, which is the main road, is to a different level of service. That is paved.
Right.
The section that is a minimum service road is only this short stretch that serves this one parcel.
It's a driveway, basically a
It's
driveway off
essentially a
the
driveway, although both parcels, any of the parcels can use that portion of the road to get onto that. That is not the main access point, and the main access road, the proposed road, will be a paved road.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Just one, and it's not really related to this particular project, but I have concerns about this area. Between Burson and Wallace, the development that's happened there is reminiscent of a pattern that's been repeated over and over again in California, and it hasn't resulted in good water, good circulation elements, good anything in the end. We sprawl out in ranchettes, and it doesn't help our infrastructure. It winds up in need of a plan after the fact. This project is small. The family's good. They've mitigated a lot of things. The Oaks is, I really appreciate the work that people have done on that, and I intend to vote for it. But I have a very strong concern about the cumulative effects in this area before we have a plan to deal with it. And so this will probably be the last affirmative vote I have in this area, especially on things of scale, until we have such a plan.
You lost me. Have what plan?
I hope a general plan or a community plan that deals with the questions of infrastructure and where we want to build and where we don't. If we keep on building in places with no water and we keep on sinking wells in, we're asking for trouble. This is a small enough project, and it's got, there's reasons why these mitigations actually make it okay. But if this were a big scale, and I know we're going to be facing some big scale stuff right in that neighborhood, I'm going to have real problems with it. And I'm trying to state that so that nobody mistakes my vote for this as an indication of support for a broader spread before we've got a clarity of purpose there.
Stephanie Moreno again. If it would please the board, I'd like to set a study session on this as quickly as possible. It would help us in guiding us in the general plan update if we knew where the board wanted to move on water issues. And we don't have to necessarily do that in the context of a certain chronology of the general plan update. We can start doing some visioning issues right away, and we could go ahead and schedule this. I would be appreciative because it does impact our ability to process existing projects, but also on how we're going to deal with the land use issues in the general plan update.
Bill, on the study session that Janice Elliott referred to, we did talk about cumulative impacts. This division did somewhat address cumulative impacts. I feel that I agree with Stephanie that we need to know what we're going to do about projects prior to the general plan. This project came in before a moratorium. Those were the rules we set up. So, I mean, Steve might start voting no because of his concerns, but we have an obligation to those people who have projects in. But I'm with him on, I'm not clear that we're addressing the cumulative impacts, and the board needs to give direction. We've talked and talked and talked about it. For example, and just using the Shiley project, you know, as a kickoff point, you have a 4-parcel split, one of them 60 acres. Those 60 acres could also be divided in 6 months or 6 years or whenever. And I also have a concern of how this board wants to address those cumulative impacts. I'm going to support this, but I'm somewhat, with Steve, I have concern, and I think this board has to address how we're going to deal with projects regarding cumulative impacts before we have a general plan in place. So, yes, I would support very much dealing with that.
I'd like to ask a question in relation to Maria's comment of council. My understanding of what we have agreed to as a board during this interim period is that we will consider projects, but that there's no obligation to approve them, that we have, that just because it goes through process, we still have other obligations to the public interest and to review infrastructure and impacts and CEQA and all the other things, and projects may or may not be approved within this period based on our evaluation of all their elements. Am I incorrect in that?
The board always has discretion on any project to either approve or deny the project. That discretion is only limited based on the type of project and the applicable law. For example, subdivisions, if you are going to deny subdivision, you have to make certain findings that are required by the MAP Act. The board does have an obligation, staff has an obligation to process the applications that were submitted prior to the moratorium, but the board can do whatever they want with those particular projects. And one of the issues that we should discuss at staff level and then bring to the board is how we are going to deal with cumulative impacts while we're updating the general plan.
I'd very much support
those are
getting some
relevant to the
definitions.
environmental review of all of these projects. There's no difference while we have the moratorium on how we review these under CEQA, and we do need to mitigate cumulative impacts, even if it's on a project-by-project basis, as opposed to a general plan mitigation.
All right. Thank you.
We may not have an opportunity to talk about this later, but I don't want to delay this. But Mr. Mitchell, don't we have an upcoming discussion scheduled to formulate that committee that joins representatives of our board with CCWD's board that would specifically address some of this stuff?
Yes, that's scheduled for May 15th after Director Bob Dean returns from vacation. That's on the board's agenda.
Okay, well, I just wanted to point out that may be a significant first step in evaluating that infrastructure requirements and methodology. So anyway, that's all I needed to talk about this before the vote.
Okay, thank you. I think everybody that I've heard anyway is on the same, pretty much on the same page with this issue, that the need for density, the need for sharing infrastructure, et cetera. So we need to have cooperation from the water district. But the other side of this is the water supply, or rather the water distribution system, is going to be slow in coming if there's no demand. So demand is not necessarily a bad thing. And we'll be having meetings, and Mr. Mitchell will schedule a study session as requested by our Community Development Director, because it is time to have some lengthy discussions about where we're going here. Okay. Any other comments from the board? A motion?
I understand that this is a three-part process. I think I'd like to move that we approve the negative declaration.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Ms. Rowland, we've closed the public.
You can make all three motions in one.
Okay, all three. We're going to, I move that we approve the negative declaration, we approve the zone change, and the parcel map as presented in the staff report.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries on a 5-0. Next. Next will be item 15, discussion and possible action regarding cancellation of the revenue sharing agreement between the City of Angels and the County of Calaveras.
Tom, you going to lead this?
That's up to you. You don't have to do it.
Ready?
Yeah.
Thank you. The item before you today is regarding what's been affectionately known as the Greenhorn Creek annexation agreement. Before I start the formal presentation, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Mayor Bill Hutchinson from the City of Angels, who's with us today, Councilman Jack Lynch, and also Tim Scheer, the City of Angels Administrator. We also have with us Lori Ranieri from Government Financial Strategies. Lori works with us on a number of different projects regarding financial issues. We started having these discussions, at least Tim and I did, back in about January of '06. After lengthy discussions on this agreement and sharing our concerns, eventually it got heightened to a higher level on our radar screen because of some issues with the Sheriff's Department having to do with the pay for fees for dispatch services. We did go to the Board of Supervisors in November 20th, 2006 regarding this issue and some other points of mutual interest with the City of Angels. At that time, the board did give our office direction that we could enter into a series of discussions with the City of Angels to determine the validity of the agreement and all of the necessary financial actions. We started meetings in January of 2007. The committee was representative of from the City of Angels. We had various council members there at different times. Councilman Raggio was there, Mayor was there, Tim was there, Melissa was there as the city administrator, as the city finance officer. On the county side, we had Lynn Norfolk, our county treasurer, Linda Churches, our auditor controller, myself. We also had support from Shirley Ryan in our administrative office. The long and short, after we've spent lengthy time analyzing all of the various financial implications, this is agreement that was done a number of years ago. It was an agreement at the time that made sense, I think, for a number of issues that were coming forth. Our subcommittee looked at revenue sharing between the two parties. A lot of this original discussions was, I think, founded in the City of Sonora's agreement with the County of Tuolumne, and one that we've not found a model for anywhere in the state of California. That particular agreement is highly unusual that you would find in agreements between cities and counties. The net effect here for the county is really a difference. We gained in the last year that we looked at this, the county actually gained about $85,000 in additional revenue from the city. We looked at the various proposals, looked at the long term. There, as a result of our discussions, I think a number of very positive things have come out of it. We've talked with the city, and the city does have a tentative agreement, which your board would see at some point in the near future, to do a pay-for-fee service agreement for dispatch services that will bring about $91,000 in revenue to the county, so will help offset this loss that we have. We've also talked with the city administrator and the council about the city entertaining the adoption of public facility fees that benefit the county, such as for a new jail or some of our other facilities. We've had discussions on those issues, just no formal agreement. Where we are today as a result of this and the various parties, if the board is interested in further opinions from our financial consultant, and Lori Ranieri, and she is the financial consultant, I should say, for both the city and the county. She's been a mediator between the two parties. We think this agreement was very time-consuming for county staff, particularly in the auditor's office, to administer, because of when the timing is when you calculate sales tax, that we have to do a lot of manual calculations because it splits in the middle of a quarter for the Board of Equalization. So there is some work that we could potentially save by auditor staff with rescinding this agreement. Our office is recommending today that you move forward taking this action to start the process, formally rescinding this agreement. We have city council members here. They will be also addressing this at their meeting tonight, depending upon your board's action. And I think it's a very positive step in the relationship between both the city and the county. It's an opportunity that we've had to work together to share our mutual feelings, both positive and negative, about the agreement. I think it's time for us to embark on a new course in our relationship, and I think that this action today is one that we not only would our office support, but I think members that served on the committee feel like it makes sense for the county to start off with a different agreement. After your board discusses this today, if you give us direction to move forward, the next item that happens is county council and our office and city attorney will work together on, there are some formal actions that have to take place, particularly related to the Board of Equalization, and we need to move forward in post haste to get those things done as quickly as possible. This will not change the current well, I should say the former revenue sharing agreement between the city and the county, and the county does receive 5% of the sales tax from the city, which is more of a standard agreement that you see in other relationships between cities and counties. So we'll entertain questions from the board, and again, Lori, if you want to come forward, I'm sure they'll have some financial questions that I can't answer, so if you could help us out with this one.
Okay. Any initial comments or questions from the board?
I have quite a few, but I'm going to wait.
Okay. Or is there anything that you can add to this or clarify?
No, I'll have questions. I want to hear what their counsel wants to say.
You saw the financial analysis that we did last November. We've had numerous meetings with the roundtable, both formal and sort of by email, looking at additional information. This information has been looked at backwards, forwards, sideways, and the roundtable all came to consensus that the revenue sharing agreement didn't make sense to continue. So I don't have any additional technical material. I think the roundtable process was an excellent process to make sure that all stones were turned and all perspectives considered, and I think a good one because everybody came to consensus.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just go ahead then. And Lori, let me just go ahead and ask some questions. On the property tax analysis, you mentioned that it was pre-ERAF. So that just exists since it was pre-ERAF? It doesn't it change? Didn't it change after ERAF went in?
Yeah, we worked with the Auditor Controller's Office to model exactly how they are currently distributing the revenue. So the analysis that we did showed the shift of revenue between the city and the county as a result of the agreement, basically what it would be, what it is with the agreement and what it would be without the agreement. So that takes into account ERAF.
Okay, so there were some, I'm trying to go through it because I had a lot of questions when I went through it. The document transfer fee, will that stay? Will that split? Will that go away? Is that what's being recommended?
Yeah, what's being recommended is that if the agreement is rescinded, then everything goes according to what the statutory requirements would be, as if the agreement didn't exist.
Okay. So we would lose not only the sales tax portion, but we would then lose the document transfer fee also.
The shift, yes.
The shift.
Well, I wouldn't put it in the form of losing, because what we determined was there was $85,000 in the year that we looked at as our example year, which is 05-06, that shifted from the city to the county that would not have made that shift if the revenue sharing agreement didn't exist. We also, as you recall, looked at the gains made by the city and the county as a result of the Greenhorn Creek development occurring. So what we didn't do, and we talked about this quite a bit in the roundtable, is whether the Greenhorn Creek development could have occurred and provided all this revenue to one or the other without the agreement. And the roundtable group agreed that the history was it wouldn't have occurred without the agreement, that the annexation was a necessary step and that the county's agreement to the annexation was a necessary step. So we looked at basically three things. What the revenue shift was with the agreement in place and what it would be if the agreement didn't exist. And we also looked at the gain in revenue to both agencies as a result of the Greenhorn Creek development. So it was very clear that both agencies gained tremendously. It was also clear that the county gained more than the city. And it was also clear that there was, as a result of the agreement, $85,000 that would go to the city if the agreement didn't exist. So I wouldn't say that that the county is losing anything, because along with this agreement was the city's desire to pay for dispatch services on a contract basis with the Sheriff's Department. So actually, if you take the staff recommendation on this, the county gains.
Well, I will deal with that issue when I talk with Tom and Tim and the City Council. I'm just trying to understand the financial concerns of the analysis, that's all. And on the one chart, taking in on the city's revenue decrease as a result of the financial terms of the agreement. I appreciate the charts and all that, I'm visual. It's a net 85,000. It's 85,000 net and gross. In this case, would be the same. With the document transfer, the sales tax, the whole thing, right? 85 loss to the city and 85 gain to the county.
Right. I guess I would say shifted.
Shift. Okay. Well, the chart says gain to the county and loss, but shift's a more positive term. I like that. Okay. The county receives $262,000 more than the city from the Greenhorn Creek property taxes. That has nothing to do with the agreement. That just shows the increase to the county from just Greenhorn Creek, but that would have been the same even without the agreement.
Right.
Because
the property tax didn't include a share.
Okay, because there was nothing in the agreement that impacted the property tax. That's the same formula.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Are we, let me ask the chair, are we going to have an opportunity to speak after the presentations? I'd prefer them to speak then. And I do have a number of questions as well.
Representatives from the city, any comments?
Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, depending on what it is. Just a few notes on the revenue sharing. Obviously, Lori alluded to it. That
please identify yourself for the record.
Bill Hutchinson, thank you. City of Angels Camp, City Council member. From what I understand about the revenue sharing, it was set up because the city, annexed that section, and with no idea that the housing and the development would go in there like it did in the last 15 years. If you've driven through there recently, you'd be amazed. I'm amazed, and I've lived there my whole life. So I only see positive things here, as Mr. Mitchell has said. If that revenue sharing can go away, and then we pay for the fees and the services that we need from the county, and obviously one is dispatch. I see that as a good thing. And then whatever service we need, we pay our way. I also understand that this setup is a nightmare for financial people to figure out for the taxes and the property taxes and how to split it up. And that obviously costs staff on both sides more money. It costs Angels Camp and Calaveras County. So also there's been a recommendation, and we have discussed other mitigation fees for items that potentially could come to our county, as in a new jail, which would be wonderful, a detention center for juniors, high school kids, animal service, emergency type service, a center for emergency type for the whole county. Anyway, those types of things are very important, and we could have some type of a fee that would potentially help in developing that type of thing in the county. So anyway, I feel that's very important, and get away from this revenue sharing that right now is set up to go on forever. And as Lori alluded to, the City of Angels wanted the Greenhorn Creek. If we wouldn't have wanted to annex, then Greenhorn Creek would have never happened, as far as, a county project right there. So anyway, because we took over all the infrastructure of fire, the roads, not the fixing of the roads, but the maintenance of the roads, and also police. So anyway, I feel that's very important, and also I just think it's a good we'd be setting up a very good relationship with the county and the city, which obviously I think is very important today. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. So I think it might be better for Tim to answer.
Mr. Hutchinson, you said that, quote, whatever service we need, we pay. How do you interpret that?
Well, there would have to be some kind of a fee set up. For instance, something that I'm just going to say for some type of a detention center that we set up in the county, that we don't have anything right now for juniors, and we have to obviously take them to another county. Well, if we use that service, obviously we would have to help pay.
we're looking at doing a joint facility with Tuolumne, so.
Well, obviously, the city would have to be in the mix, I would think, and obviously, we're not as big as the county as far as, that type of service, but we obviously are a part of it, and so you would probably take some fees from the population of the City of Angels, and that would go towards doing that.
I mean, I have some questions. I don't know if Mr. Hutchinson's the one that should answer them, so maybe Tim might.
Hi, Tim Shear, Angels Camp Administrator.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Maria.
Okay. As I understand it, first of all, the impact fees, those are only going to be based on the number of unbuilt lots, because once that's when an impact fee is paid. So once you build out, there will be no more impact fees, or minimal. And on the sheriff's dispatch, when you talk about projected salary increases for the next 3 years, I'm assuming that's the ones that would go to the sheriff's office for dispatch services. What then? And at what point will the city be saying we will agree versus we agree in principle? There's a difference.
Okay. Two different components there. One is, as Tom and I have discussed, the city would be looking at building permit fees where, just like we have right now, traffic mitigation fees, park fees, police fees, all those kinds of things, there would be a fee on there for going for whatever the agreed upon center is. Like the jail has been one of the big things that we've talked about, is a good example. So the city would have that, we would collect those fees, and then those fees would be sent to the county for the purpose of building a new jail. That would be ongoing. As far as an end date or things like that, I think a lot of people might want to say, okay, Angels Camp will only be 4,000 people and we'll stop, but knowing the way that the realities are, there will be continued growth, and certainly for the rest of my lifetime. We're really kind of trying to concentrate on infill because of water issues and wastewater issues, and it's much more cost effective. So we're trying to, as much as we can, keep it inside of our boundaries. So that's really something that we want to focus on in our general plan. And we've actually, the general plan is actually shrinking down our area that we want to have, so we can really get that high density. So that's kind of our goal, but we do anticipate continued growth for many, many years that would be going towards, or could be eligible for those kinds of fees. And then the second part of the equation is in reference to the agreement with the Sheriff's Department. I'll tell you where we are right now. We do have in our budget $91,000 line item for dispatching fees. There is a tentative agreement that has been worked through by our police chief. He's been keeping the city council informed of the terms of that agreement. It's not in its final form. It's currently with the sheriff, and they're working out those final items on there, and he might be able to address that a little bit more. But the terms and conditions that have been discussed by our police chief with the city council are very much agreed upon, makes things much clearer for both the sheriff's department and the police department. Lots of ambiguities and different concerns about what is dispatch, when dispatch, and all those kinds of things are all lined out. So it gets rid of a lot of those issues that we've had for years. And it's not, when I say issues, I don't want to take that out of context. I mean, the sheriff's department and police department have worked together very, very well. But in the absence of having this contractual agreement and then the payment for the services, it's at times been fuzzy, and that fuzziness then permeates down to different levels and can cause, let's say, hiccups sometimes in the service, and so we have to work through those. But, I mean, in the big grand scheme of things, the police and sheriff do work together very, very well, and we've always had a strong relationship there. So,
Yes, okay. They do have a good working daily mutual aid, all that. I'm going to put that aside.
Right.
Our sheriff came to us, I think he came to us, or I read it in the paper, one of the two, you can please correct me, saying if Angels Camp doesn't start paying for dispatch services, they're on their own. So that 91,000 or some permutation of that
right.
would be spent in some format with even the revenue sharing agreement in place. So at some point, the city and the county, the police chief and our sheriff, with the city council and board approval, would have to have come together for some agreement on dispatch services. So, I mean, I know we've been kind of batting the ball back and forth for a few years on this issue, but it's an issue that was reaching its apex when the sheriff said, if you don't pay, I'm not dispatching. So I'm not real clear on whether, this is a good buy or not a good buy for the county.
Okay.
Because that would have occurred regardless.
The reality is that our budget, when we started yesterday morning, was $523,000 in the red. So anticipated expenses over revenues. The budget that we currently have, as far as the revenues, we calculated in there the documentary transfer tax, took a guess at that, and then also what we anticipate the 8% of the sales tax would be. So those revenues are included in that. And then also on the other side is the $91,000. So these are hand in hand, the increase in revenues and then the payment to the sheriff's department. So as we're going through our process, that is the model that we're using. So that's a part of the process is that it is definitely, as we get the revenues, then that does allow us, hopefully, if we can overcome this, the disparity that we have here on our revenues versus expenses, we will be able to.
So what do you pay the sheriff's office now for dispatch services?
Right now, well, the way that this has worked for decades is that the city provides 64% of our property tax to the county.
Oh, that's right, I remember. And you think that you're already paying for it.
Right, and we pay
and we don't
13%
think you
of our
are.
sales tax.
That's right.
Right, and our documentary transfer tax.
Yeah.
So as residents of the county and part of Angels Camp and the whole.
So as a board member, all we're going to do is take your 91, give it to the sheriff because that's going to be designated kind of money, and then take 91 from the sheriff and put it back in our general fund. Because this revenue sharing money is general fund money that the board has little discretion over anyway. So, I think the sheriff needs to know. That's how I'm looking at this. What is in the best interest of the county? And it sounds nice. It gets rid of the argument, and in 3 years we're going to be talking about it again. But all we're doing is playing, what pocket is it coming out of for the county? Because the sheriff's going to think, oh, great, I've got 91,000 and give us some money and not pay the general fund back.
Rita, I think one of the important things is that when you say county, please do include the residents of Angels Camp because they are county residents. And with the amount of monies that we are currently paying today, we are paying for a lot of county services. And so those services should be provided to the county, to the residents of Angels Camp that are also the county residents. What we're looking at now is clarifying something and correcting a situation so that we don't have these ambiguities, we don't have the sheriff saying he's not getting paid. As far as $91,000 and what you do with it internally, that is something that is up to the county. And
understand that, Tim, you're correct. The thing is that this board needs to be cognizant of that. I mean, every time somebody comes in here for a reclass and it costs money, that's general fund money. So, I mean, I'm the steward, or we're the stewards of the general fund, and you're going to give, and maybe that is an internal issue, which I agree. I'm just trying to see is breaking this agreement in the best interest of Calaveras County's general fund, forgetting that it takes a lot of work to manage it. I'm respectful of that. And that you're going on the impact fees, that's going to have a finite end to that, because it only occurs when a building permit is pulled. And before I would sign or agree to that, I would need to know that it's more than agreed in principle, that there's something more definitive. I mean, I respect the members of the committee. I think you had a really good roundtable group that holds a lot of weight with me. But
well, one solution I have to that is, you know that game that we used to play when we were kids where you kind of hold on to something and then you take it and you both let go at the same time? We could simultaneously, the same night, do the dispatch agreement. We execute that along with the legislation that needs to be prepared. So we can do that at the same time, and then that way we do that game. Marita, one of the things too, I would totally respect the general fund, and especially right now, budget's just totally on my mind 24/7. Remember, there is a large component of the general fund that does come out of Angels Camp. So, and a lot of that money is also generated from Greenhorn Creek because of the property taxes and so forth. So that's one thing. Then the 3-year issue. There are many cities in California that contract with the county for dispatch services. There's even a few counties that actually contract with the cities for dispatch services. Contracting for dispatch services is a very common practice, and something that when Sheriff Downham was looking at it, and also Chief Tony Teixeira, they were using those models to put this together. This is a 3-year contract. This gets us started. And then just like every other city and county do, when they have their contracts, they go back, they renegotiate, they look at what are the costs, they look at all the data, and they figure out what is appropriate. So I don't see that in 3 years we're going to have a train wreck. I just see it as being something that will become a natural thing where every 3 years, or if it's a 5-year contract or 1-year contract, whatever's negotiated, we negotiate like many of the other cities and counties do.
is this on tape? I want to make sure that we do not destroy this tape.
I'll put it in blood if you like.
I'll take it.
I'll give it.
No, that's fine. I meant,
Down to flesh.
for me, well, I mean, Sheriff, you understand what I'm saying. The city's going to give you 91, and then you're going to not give us back 91, and we have 85,000 that we have control over as a board.
Marita, I don't have any control whatsoever on the agreements that you all have had set up with the City of Angels, or what kind of revenue the City of Angels provided the county. What I do have control over is my dispatch center. And I absolutely am at a critical mass thing here where I need 3 dispatchers during peak times. We have worked with the City of Angels, and quite frankly, I think it went very well. And it was just like when we worked with the ambulance companies to provide the money to get a couple of dispatchers that we've needed. We've tried to stay away from the general fund, but quite frankly, it's not my business what you guys do with your agreement with Angels Camp. I look at this as an agreement with the Angels Camp to provide dispatch services for them. And if I lose a corresponding 91,000, then I guess I would ask the board to tell me, who do I stop dispatching for? Because I can't, we're not going to stay on top.
So are you comfortable with 91 with increases for the next 3 years?
Because
depending on salary, is that how I understand it, Mr. Mitchell?
We put in, I believe, a 4% increase over the next yearly for the next 2 years, and because of we'll probably be into the fiscal year a short time before we actually get these people on board. We will have a little salary savings. We've put 4% increase because we just trying to anticipate some growth through contract negotiations. We think that will take care of 2 dispatch positions. And then in 3 years, I guess we sit down again and talk about it. Amador County has had contracts with every one of their cities for dispatch services for years and years and years, and it's almost a natural renewal thing.
Thank you. Chair.
Steve?
I think one of the most complicated relationships in rural areas has been that between counties and cities and reverse, and you can see a lot of different approaches to it even in the neighborhood. Amador County is kind of an interesting study in that, having I think 7 cities, and just imagine what this would look like in that context and the complexity of the roundtable that you just had. What worries me, I think it's great that people are talking. I think that the civility and collegiality of this round has been duly noted, and its product is before us. But Marita's right. We're transferring funds. For the impact on this county is to transfer money to something that's absolutely needed. The sheriff has been right on this from the get-go. He presented it well, was well organized in this particular area of city-county relationships, and we are addressing that. And I support that. I think it's important that we accomplish this. It still leaves, as I think Marita is suggesting, some unfinished business here. We have, and things that we haven't really discussed. There's the health and human services arena, and we certainly serve the folks in town. We have vector control. We have animal control. You've noted some of them, but certainly not all of them. And I suspect that there's also some reciprocity in which the city provides services that we're not.
Yeah, we shop there. Get my sales text out.
That wasn't exactly what I was referring to, but duly noted. I view this as a start, but again, when we say we're agreeing in principle to consider something, that's very different than having the comprehensive relationship and full scope discussions that I think are required to get some long-term stability to this complex relationship. I'm looking, and I think good intentions are just fine, but I'd hate to see us say, sit down and say, okay, we're finished. I hear the words, but the documents before us are this segment of the, it's the stuff that's been bothering us, irking us, and causing conflict. But there are many unspoken areas of this relationship that I really hope we will continue to discuss in maybe a broader context. The roundtable of that would need people like our public health, our environmental health, our social services, many different aspects. And while I recognize that that's not all, most of this is state and federal funding, there is county general fund revenues that are allocated to some extent in different areas of that. So I'll be supporting this, but I really must urge a strong commitment to continue this nice beginning. And I'd sure like to hear some words, particularly from elected officials, on that topic.
May I address that?
Sure, John.
Okay. One of the things that we talked about in this year-long worth of meetings and so forth is we talked about the services that the city provides, a full service. We provide the police, the roads, the parks. We provide the fire. In fact, one of the best fire departments that you have around. We've now gone to 24/5 operation within weekends, 10 hours, and then volunteers for the rest of it. So not quite 24/7, but we're getting close. And so we provide all of those services, which of course the county doesn't have to provide. And then all I would like is just continue to remember that when we're talking about county services, that just like you mentioned, the state, a lot of it's federal funded, state funded, and so forth. When you look at per capita, those per capita figures include the people of Angels. And when you talk about the general fund, 64% of the local property tax share does go to the county. So there are services that are being paid for out of just the regular state formulas. And so the county residents that also happen to live in Angels Camp, they have been and are continuing and will continue to pay for services. So that's all part of the mix. And we spent a lot of time on those kinds of issues as we went through all of the meetings and so forth. And one thing I didn't do is I did not commend Tom and Lynn and Linda and their staffs for the time and effort that they spent on there, because they did represent the county very, very well.
Which is just another example of the kind of revenue sharing, comprehensive revenue sharing that I'm suggesting we consider. But by no means do I want my comments to be an underestimation of what the city contributes to this. It's just a more complex equation than what's before us today.
Any other?
Oh, sure, Bill.
Please. Bill Hutchinson, City Council, Angels Camp. To allude to, I will strongly suggest that Mr. Scheer and Mr. Mitchell get together and continue to work between the city and the county and develop more relationships and try to come up with more of the things that I feel are very important, just like you do as far as moving forward. It's very important. It takes time, energy, and it takes a lot of work from the staff on both sides. And as you know, all your people are very busy and we're very small. And so we, really, I think that's very important, and I will push for that. Thank you.
I mean, considering our supervisor's going to ride his horse to Angels Camp this weekend going, yeehaw!
Yeah, what's the price on
what
that?
Else can you ask for? Yeah. Tom, I'm real interested in what your thought is. You were here.
Okay, let me give my, first of all, Lori, would you come forward for a minute? I'm puzzled by your finding that the differences between this agreement and not having had an agreement is $85,000. I don't see how the county share of sales tax can go from 5 to 13%, and I think that 13% is fully implemented at the present time. Is that correct?
Yes.
In your base year? Or how the city split on available property tax can go from 64, or from 36, excuse me, from, what was it before the agreement?
The property tax did not shift at all.
It was 64-36 before the agreement?
Right.
Oh, so there was no shift there?
No shift. There's property, the county collects property taxes within the city boundaries. At the 1% of property tax that's collected all over the state of California is allocated by tax rate areas to every jurisdiction, and there's one tax rate area within the City of Angels, and that reflects how the...
Okay, so that didn't change.
Right. The major shift results from the change in the sharing of sales tax. There was a small change that related to documentary transfer tax, but the major shift was changing the percentage of sales tax that was or would be without the agreement 5% to the county, to the 13%.
Okay.
That's the major shift that adds up to the $85,000.
Okay. When you did the analysis, one of the questions I asked was what, prior to this agreement versus your base year, which I guess was last year. Is that the base year we're
We
looking
used
at?
0506 as a year for comparison.
Okay, then your base year 05. What was the change in the transient occupancy tax for the city? Did you ever come up with that number?
We didn't look at that. One of the reasons that we did the analysis the way we did it was frankly to focus on the things that were statistically important, and that was a factor of the roundtable. We did in fact add a couple of additional analytical elements. I think you're looking at material that was provided to you in November, right? What's the date on the bottom of the page?
It's the original agreement.
I'm looking at the original agreement,
There's a
which
date
was
in the
dated
middle of-
1993, February.
No, the date on the page there, there's a date in the middle of the bottom margin, the middle, there's a date.
No.
On the material that I prepared in your...
Oh, the stuff you prepared?
January 2nd.
Oh, January 2nd, 07.
Okay, so that was that was before we did the roundtable. There was no significant changes in that analysis, but we did look at several other things. We looked more closely at EREF. We looked at sales tax splits from the surrounding areas. We discussed other things that we should look at. And frankly, given the amount of dollars that we're talking about, it just didn't seem right to spend tens of thousands of dollars to go back and look at anything more than the things that came up in the roundtable. In other words, we didn't look at anything more than what you see there, plus looking at sales tax in surrounding counties and looking at how ERAF worked with property taxes. And Lynn and Linda, were there any other analytical things that we added, do you recall? I don't think so. So we didn't look at anything else because the group, which was a technical group, decided what makes sense to look at here.
Okay. Okay, I guess my comment a little there is that there was much negotiation between the county at the time of this agreement. It's reflected in here, and the city kept 100% of the TOT tax. And so you did an earlier analysis, or this analysis, looking at Greenhorn as a standalone and saying what are the consequences of Greenhorn. But one of the most significant consequences of Greenhorn, quite frankly, is WorldMark, which is transient occupancy tax, and that never, that I could see, ever came into the equation to look at even Greenhorn as a standalone entity. Is that correct?
We had no documents that indicated the basis for how transient occupancy tax was being treated, or that it was related at all to Greenhorn Creek. I mean, it may have been historically. I don't know, but we had no evidence of that.
Well, within the agreement, it even, I think, states that the county or the city is to keep 100% of the transient occupancy tax. I mean, that was a significant part of the negotiations, and I guess that's missing in the analysis, in my opinion. Let me ask two other questions. There are two issues within the agreement that are already here. One is that if the county should impose any countywide or regional or benefit fees, the city shall impose them within the city on behalf of the county. So the capital facilities fees are incorporated within this agreement. Is that not correct?
Within which agreement?
The Greenhorn Creek agreement between the city and the county on the annexation of Greenhorn Creek.
If you take the staff recommendation, my understanding is the Greenhorn Creek agreement ceases to exist.
Yes.
So therefore, there's nothing that it says in there that...
But if it doesn't cease to exist, it's currently in place. So when staff says, oh, but we're going to initiate facilities fees, the commitment for the city to participate in any countywide facility fees, i.e. a jail or e.g. a jail, that is currently within the agreement.
I'd have to defer to legal counsel.
Okay. The other issue that will be a huge issue down the road if it should happen is redevelopment, because redevelopment basically takes money directly from the county and puts it into the redevelopment agency through a reduction in property taxes.
It's a transfer of property taxes.
Yes, from the county's general fund to the city. Is that not correct?
Well, actually, the way redevelopment works, it freezes the tax base, and increases in the tax base multiplied by the 1% are directed to, in general, how redevelopment works, are directed to the redevelopment agencies. So there's no loss, there's just a shifting of future gain to redevelopment on the basis that...
That's a loss. I mean, in other words, it's in this agreement because that was a hotly negotiated issue when we did this, because the city had proposed a redevelopment agency and it would have significant impacts upon the county's general fund.
Well, since 1993, the redevelopment law has been substantially reformed, and if the city were to want to form a redevelopment agency, they could not do that running roughshod over the county's concerns. In fact, every single taxing agency has an opportunity to speak up with the proposal of a new redevelopment area. So I guess I would have to defer to legal counsel if there was a specific proposal and what all the public agencies would speak up. But if your concern is that any city in California could form a redevelopment agency over the objections of all the taxing agencies and claim all of the future tax revenues, that's not the way the process works. There is an ample opportunity for participation from all those public agencies.
It's one thing to say participation. It's another thing to say you have the ability to stop it. I mean, we have participation all the time. We take a vote, and if you're in opposition to a majority vote of the board, you lose.
Well, I think whether you would have the opportunity to stop a redevelopment effort on the city's part would depend on what their proposal was. So, I mean, in the abstract, there is quite a significant amount of protection in the redevelopment law as it stands now.
Well, maybe county council would take a look at the changes in redevelopment law and state what those implications are to the county.
I would do that. I should point out to you that the provision you referred to regarding the
facilities fees.
Facilities fees is in a memorandum, but it didn't find its way into the agreement that I can see.
No, it was never in the agreement.
It's not part of the agreement.
I thought it was part of it.
But what is this, Jim? This is the agreement.
I'm looking at a memorandum. I think Supervisor Tryon's looking at a memorandum from Brent Herring.
Yes.
There was a memorandum that talked about these various issues, but they did not make it into the final agreement. The agreement for distribution, the same thing with the TOT, the transient occupancy tax, never made it into that final agreement.
Well, that's because there was no change to it.
There was no change, but I think from representing the city's perspective on that, I don't think anyone that was part of the negotiations would have predicted, based on this agreement, that Greenhorn Creek would have developed the way it did. The city was successful in negotiating some TOT agreements with Worldmark that are not necessarily standard agreements that you'll find for timeshare developments. That was something the city negotiated separately for certain concessions, but at the time we talked about, back in this original, in the documentation I found, there was no anticipation that Worldmark would have been there and that the TOT would go to the county. It was a general concept about TOT, and in the meantime, the city hasn't, unlike the county, the city has increased their TOT. They're generating more revenue off that. But the TOT issue is particularly, I think, it may have been discussed in the original terms, but how it eventually ended up and the benefit the city accrued from the Worldmark agreement accrues to the city and was not party to any agreement that the county had. I think it's important to keep in mind, a lot of these issues, those people that have been around a long time, if we drag Curly into the room, Curly will jump up and down and do somersaults every time we talk about the Greenhorn Creek agreement. The budget issues that we're having here, and particularly having to do with the sheriff's budget, each of those things stand alone. We sit down at budget time, we take 1,000 different items, we throw them in a pot, we stir them up, we make recommendations to your board. We've got things from the standpoint of our environmental management director who'd like to have a mosquito district. We always have more competing needs than we have resources. I think it is really we make recommendations to the board, and then the board, in its wisdom, makes choices where the money is spent. Our office would have recommended rescinding this agreement regardless of any agreement that the sheriff had with the City of Angels. It doesn't make practical sense to continue this agreement between the city and the county. We have so much more to gain in a positive working relationship together and tackling issues of mutual benefit to us than we do moving forward with an agreement that was done at a point in time, and that history has changed. And that happens all the time in things that we do. We take a look, we reassess, see where we are, and we look at moving forward in a positive direction instead of just relying on the fact that we made an agreement 15 years ago.
Okay, I'll finish my comments then. And I guess I'm sort of disappointed in the narrowness of what's before us. I mean, the simple issue is this. The county feels, or the county always has felt, that it provides more in general fund services to the city than it receives in general fund revenue from the city. And as some board members have pointed out, I mean, everything upstairs here, whether it be the clerk for the courts, the tax assessor, the assessor, animal control, the jail, probation, public health, welfare. I mean, you could just sort of go down this list that has county general fund costs that get provided to the city. The city feels, contrary to that, that they pay more in general fund revenues to the county than they receive in general fund services back from the county. And that's always been, in my opinion, the underlying issue that we've never addressed. And this, in my opinion, does not address it. Basically just going back and saying, what are the revenues before the agreement and what are the revenues after the agreement, doesn't address the underlying concerns. When this started, my comment was it would seem to be a nice starting place would be is to count up all the general fund departments that provide services to the city, do it on a per capita basis and say, well, what's 8% of all that? What are the general fund revenues we receive from the city, and what is that, and sort of what is the difference? As I think Steve pointed out, there's always, everywhere in California, there seems to be a conflict between cities and counties over that very issue. And then the county looks and says, well, geez, you know, you've got X amount of sales tax in the city or whatever, but, you know, a lot of the county residents go to the city and do their shopping there. I mean, one of the reasons sales tax was such a big issue in this agreement is the city is on the intersection of 4 and 49, and it's the natural for the Highway 4 corridor to have you know, the larger, more volume retail establishments be within the City of Angels because of its location there. The county, I think, has a very strong interest in seeing that the Highway 4 corridor doesn't end up as a huge strip mall. That we want it, you know, we want development to be within the community centers. And one of the critical ones, because of the intersection there, is the City of Angels. So, to me, the issue has always been what is a fair payment from the city, however calculated, you know, whether all the revenue sources, versus what is the county paying back in county general fund taxes,
right.
or general fund services. And we've never gotten even remotely close to an answer to that question. And that was one of the huge questions in the negotiation of this agreement, was, well, what are we going to do to you know, you know, and you can say, well, it's $85,000 today, but, you know, if the small, medium, big box stores end up in Angels Camp, and the whole county from San Andres and the whole Highway 4 corridor goes to Angels Camp, then, you know, the state under Wilson basically took the county's property tax away, so we went from 27 to 17% of the property tax that goes into the county general fund. And so we're all living on sales tax, so everybody's competing with sales tax. You look at Amador County, and they put a lot of the box stores in the unincorporated area just because they needed the sales tax. And you know, I don't want to say, well, let's force the county into doing countywide developments that really belong within the community centers, whether it be Angels or Murphy's or Arnold or Copper or San Andres or Valley Springs, because we're fighting over income streams, and we've never resolved the underlying issue of what's fair for the income.
Let me address that, because I think your question is a natural one, it's a reasonable one, and it's one that I get all the time. I do this kind of work all over the state, and the question is, what you're asking is, what's the fee that we should charge for government service? And the problem with that question, and the conundrum that every county government gets into, is in the United States, taxes are not fees. In fact, we don't justify taxes the way we justify fees. In fact, there's a clear distinction in the law, and then I would say within each local jurisdiction, there are local mores about what is the level of government service that should be provided to everybody equally, no matter what their level of contribution to the tax receipts is. And there are other things that we charge fees for, and that can vary quite a bit. There are communities that have community pools and they charge fees, and there are other communities where the pools are open. There are county libraries, county-free libraries with the word free in their name that charge a fee to get a library card. And there are other counties where the library card is truly free. And there's distinctions about, you know, is the library open to anyone? This comes into play with joint use libraries, and you have libraries in schools, and do we allow anybody to walk off the street and use a library that's being shared with a school and also has school children in it, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the questions that you're asking are not new to me. I deal with this every day. The problem with, but the way you framed it, you said the question is what's the fee for service? What's the cost per service? We can calculate the cost per capita. We can calculate the cost for any government service that's being provided, whether it's being provided by the county, the city, the state, on a per capita basis. We can relate it specifically to people of certain demographics. The problem with that analysis is that we find it isn't very helpful in making decisions, and it costs a lot to do because there's a lot of data to be done. So I think the question is very natural to be asked. Can we parse this out? And this is something that I would be very interested in going over with the county as part of our public facilities fees work, which is a separate endeavor and has nothing to do, I think, really with this revenue sharing agreement. Because I think in understanding what you're going to be doing with public facilities fees, it is important to know what you intend to charge fees for and what you think is just general government service that should be provided through people's taxes. And there will be important distinctions to be made. In my mind, where this discussion started, Tom and Tim got together and agreed that this agreement was a burr in the saddle that was standing in the way of a productive relationship between the city and the county. That's where the discussion started. I didn't even know Tim Shearer until Tom called me up and said, we need some help here. We looked at a variety of ways to do this analysis. We came up with a way of doing an analysis that we thought was valuable, that was within the budget, that was available to do it. And of course, that's always the case with any government agency. You don't have endless budget just to do research and analysis. We came up with that analysis last August. That was reviewed by Tom. That was reviewed by the board in November, I think. And then we started the roundtable process, and the purpose of the roundtable process was to give an opportunity to air all of these concerns. There's not a single concern that I've heard today that was not raised during our roundtable. You might have a few more to show to share with us that we didn't discuss, but we did ask ourselves, is there something more that we should look at? And I think the bottom line was that this agreement is sufficiently unusual, difficult to manage, that it doesn't make sense for for $85,000 or $90,000 a year, that the relationship between the city and the county should reflect more time-tested governmental processes. And that doesn't mean that you would never consider another revenue-sharing agreement. It's just that this revenue-sharing agreement, it was a bit of a bad fit for the long term. Maybe it made sense originally, but there was just a lot in here that didn't really seem to fit the resulting situation. So I think that the roundtable was pretty thorough in discussing this, and I think that both parties were very well represented at that table and represented by technical staff that did consider what else should we look at, what other things are relevant. And my point is, there's a lot of information that Calaveras County might benefit from having as you make future decisions, but the journey of 1,000 steps begins with one step. And so I realize that this is open to criticism for being narrow, but I think if we weren't narrow, we would never finish. And so, we're now a year and a half into the process, and we've spent all of the budget that we had to do this work. And I think really it comes down to, from my perspective, was that roundtable process worthy of your support? We have well-documented minutes from every meeting. We have all the additional material that was there. The file is available to anybody who's interested. The county treasurer and the county auditor are here to speak to it, as well as the county administrator. They were the representatives in the process. The city had their representatives. I think they're willing to support this. And if you are, then we can go on. That doesn't mean that there aren't additional questions you'd like to research about revenue sharing in the future, about perhaps redevelopment, about public facilities fees, about taxes. Those are all things that are part of your process. And believe you me, I love analyzing things. Give me the budget, I'll analyze anything down to the gnat's eyelash. But, we did what we could with the budget that we had, and I would say we took a lot more time getting there because we wanted the roundtable to forge a relationship. And one of the things that I think everybody was pleased with was the consensus among the individuals who were at those meetings, that was a valuable thing that served as a foundation for the county and the city to move forward. And I think that Tom and Tim would agree, I don't mean to speak for them, but the foundation that we started with, which was a burr under the saddle, was not going to allow us to move productively forward. And making a step in this regard allows one step productively, and I think the board can certainly give direction to future discussions and things that you want to see, and I encourage that.
Thank you.
Tom, Tryon, in the agreement...
I got it. It's all right, Lori.
In the agreement, all it addresses is that cooperate and will help address the county's need for regional services. There's no definitive
I was reading the memorandum.
figures.
I thought the memorandum was a reflection of the agreement. Apparently it was not.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that is in there, though, if you read under sales tax, which I know everyone's been concerned about, there is a statement in there that says, should a decrease occur due to implementation of the sales tax distribution schedule, county agrees to meet with the city to amend the implementation schedule
Well, we did that.
prospectively.
And we did that.
And
We did
so
that.
that was an issue that was covered on the sales tax, and I think it's important.
We were very nice to them. We did that,
Good.
and you're welcome.
And it's not, people should understand, it's not 13% sales tax. Of the 7.25% sales tax that's collected, the city gets 87%, the county gets 13%.
Yeah, we know that.
So.
Okay. Any further comments from board members? Sure. Come up to the podium and identify yourself once again.
Here, all I see is that you're asking for direction to proceed. But there's nothing here.
No, but state your name, please.
I'm Jane Napper, and I just had a comment about what seems to be going on here, and I really don't care for rhetoric, and so I'll make it short. I hear a lot about numbers and such, but I haven't heard anything about public safety or accountability, and those two things really seem to be very important when you're talking about law enforcement. And I think accountability would be much better if things were a little bit more divided. And I can't remember everything else because I'm just nervous. But anyway, that's the bottom line. I don't think numbers are all that important. It sounds like they'll equal out in the end. Things will get worked out. And the main issue doesn't seem to be anything that anyone's talked about, but it seems to be more of a political shift in authority and control.
Thank you, Dean. Comments from anybody else? If I understand correctly, Mr. Mitchell, at this point you're just asking for direction to continue working on this agreement. Is that correct?
What we'd like for the board to do, if the board today will direct staff to move forward with the cancellation of the revenue sharing agreement, that will give something for Tim to talk to his counsel about tonight. And then once you take that action, as part of that, our office will work with county counsel and the city attorney the particular terms that we have to do with the Board of Equalization, and also work with the treasurer, tax collector, and the auditor on the implementation.
Okay, I would give that direction to proceed. And I think Marita mentioned that she would like, and I think some other board members, if we're going to have a facilities agreement, when the board actually takes action, we'd like to have a package to take action.
Right.
Was that your, I think that was Marita's comment.
And we'd like Jim just to address redevelopment, or at least inform us.
I will do that. The minute order that was in the board packet may need to be clarified. As I understand it, this is not a final action on this board's part.
Yeah, we're just giving direction at this point to proceed with the procedure.
Well, the minute order does state to approve the cancellation of the revenue sharing agreement.
That's the point he's raising.
And
yeah, well, that's not what we're doing. We're giving direction to proceed with it and to bring the other documents back so that it will come as one package. Isn't that what the board?
well, I think you need to read the minute order.
There's no minute order that's being acted on.
Yes, there is. That's in our board packet.
I know, and we're not acting on it. We're giving direction to proceed and to bring these issues back so that we can act on them as one package.
Then I think I understand this.
Huh?
I think I understand.
Does the city understand? Because they're going to be addressing this tonight.
Right.
Tim?
Doesn't it sound like that you're asking them to agree that when we have the...
I think the current minute order would be final for this board. It would then put the ball in their court, and their action would then terminate the agreement. It would be over.
That's one way my understanding where the board was. The board wanted to look at redevelopment, wanted to look at the facilities agreement, and wanted to have those issues
in exchange for our willingness to abandon this.
Clarification on those issues, so it's not just cancel it and we can't reach agreement.
Tim?
What we had anticipated today was that the supervisors were going to agree that they would direct Tom Mitchell and Jim Jones to go ahead and prepare the legislation that would go to the Department of Finance. And that would be the same document that we would then also have to adopt. So both you and us would have to adopt it. At this point, we don't have anything to take action on.
Well, that's not been prepared for us either.
Right. So, but
that's what we're saying.
thinking that we
Proceed
would,
with the documentation. Let's see if we can bring this and put a ribbon around all this.
Right, but I was thinking we were going to get something a little bit more concrete than that. But Tom,
I think what the concern of the board is that if we eliminate this without having another agreement in place, we're kind of lost at sea out here. And I think we'd like to see what's going to replace this, if I'm understanding the sentiment of the board. If we eliminate this agreement, then there's absolutely nothing in place, because this agreement has nothing to do with the 91,000 or any other considerations here. So I think we'd like to see a little more detail about what will be in place of this. Is that
what continues to be in place would be the state law, and also the 1970s agreement with Altaville Maloney for the 5% sales tax. So 5% sales tax would continue to go as part of a revenue sharing agreement from back in the 70s when Altaville annexed into the city. And then we revert back to the state law on the documentary transfer tax. The historical 64% of our property taxes going to the county would continue in place. That does not change. So I don't know that there's any other agreements that were in that agreement that would need to be replaced. So the recommendation of the roundtable was that the agreement would go away completely.
Okay. I think that what we're saying is that we would at least like signed MOU on dispatch services, impact fees, and maybe one on redevelopment. I can't answer that because, Loy said there's been a lot of changes and Tom's requested Jim to look at that. So if we take this so that City Council can deal with something, that yes, we are requesting to approve the cancellation of the revenue sharing agreement, we can do that. It will not be approved, though, until, the board has to sign off on that.
We're giving direction to proceed.
Well, we're requesting
staff.
to approve the cancellation of it.
Rita, forget the minute order, okay?
Tom,
I'm not talking
but they
about the minute
have
order.
to go to City Council tonight with something
Okay,
definitive.
but we still have to
anything.
get the agreement put together for the State Board of Equalization.
My
We have
concern
to
was
act on that.
this minute order would end any further action by this board.
There's no sense giving any direction to staff if you pass the minute order right now.
All right.
So my suggestion, Mr. Chair, would be that for the record, no action be taken on the minute order, but that the board be called for direction to staff to pursue the thing that I think
Right.
I understand.
And compose the legislation.
To pursue
that's
the
gonna go-
cancellation, and we want to pursue the cancellation, and I'm a yes on that.
If I might, I think what I'm also hearing, just for Tim's edification and the council members, the board would like some discussion by the city council regarding public facility fees, that they would be supportive of the county's actions on public facility fees at a future date.
And the dispatch. That's part of the package.
And the dispatch agreement, yes.
Right.
And I think we have agreement on those issues.
And anything else Mr. Hutchinson said that he will pay for.
Steve?
I'm fine with that.
Russ?
I'm okay with it.
Yes.
Are you done?
Yes.
It's fine. Okay, Mr. Mitchell, you have your direction.
Thank you, and I appreciate staff's support of this issue and the patience everyone has demonstrated.
Linda, would you hang around for just a minute? I'd like to talk to you when we finish with the next item. I think we'll take a break then, if you don't mind.
He's going to go to City Council. Tom, you're going to City Council tonight, their meeting. I think there should be a board representative.
Okay.
I don't know if Bill...
What do I have tonight? I don't know.
I don't know, senators, town citizen meeting.
I got a cancellation if you need something.
So,
What time's your...
Tim, what time is your City Council meeting?
6 o'clock.
And where will this be on the agenda?
This is
11 o'clock.
You're going to do better by me than we did by you, I hope.
the definitive action for us will, of course, be for the State Board of Equalization. So that's the actual legislation that we would act on. And the other thing, of course, is however you want to lock us in as far as the dispatch fee. That's something we're moving ahead with. We've got it programmed in our budget. So, that thing that you do as a kid, hey, however you want to work that out, we're good with that.
Okay, so what time?
Well, the meeting starts at 6, and then I can remember where it is in the agenda.
Okay. So I'll show up at 9, and you'll be within the, probably by 9:30 you'll get to it? Okay, I'll see you then.
all right. Thank you. We'll move on to
Firehouse? They still meet at the firehouse?
review of correspondence, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, certainly, I told you that at 10 o'clock.
Tom, you have something
I
to...
do not have anything to bring before the board today, Mr. Chair.
Today I have the Mental Health Board meeting in the library at 4. Tomorrow I'll be at the Elder Abuse Awareness Couch all day. Thursday we have the planning meeting, the Railroad Flat Community Hall for Glencoe and Railroad Flat. That's the first official county version of that. I have first 5 board meeting from 9 to 12 on Friday. A meeting with the BLM. They've got this new, people might want to actually review this. There's a draft out that's quite thick and talks a lot about the BLM properties in Calaveras County and their projected use. It has big implications for my district, and we're meeting with officials from Sacramento and a community group to try to work through some of its failures to reflect local comments on the topics that are recommended there. On Saturday, Tribal Council meeting, and Sunday they're dedicating the first Habitat for Humanity house in West Point. The Rose family is going to be moving in, and would invite everybody to that great celebration. We'll be having a start at the Community Covenant Church at 12:30.
Thank you.
I also have one.
You always do that, Tony.
Yeah, sorry. I have one other comment. Last week during the public, the study session, I had mentioned that I had passed on information that had come to me that the Alpine County had hired a community plan coordinator at higher price than we were paying. That turns out not to be accurate information. I want to make sure that was corrected for the public record. By no means does that undermine the point I was trying to make, which is that we really do need this position to be hired, and if there's a salary or other problem that is causing us not to have even interviewed anybody in the several months since this was posted, I would very much urge us to address that. That's it.
Done?
Yep, done.
Okay.
On board-appointed items this week, I have debt advisory this afternoon, Area 12 on Thursday, jail on Friday.
You going to jail?
Yep, I'm going to jail.
About time.
And the Fish and Game Commission will have Fishing Day. Again, it's annual fishing day for the kids from 8 to 2 out at Indian Rock. And poles can be provided. And that's all for board-appointed committees.
Thank you. Russ?
I'm not on Fish and Game anymore, but I do intend to go to the fishing day at Indian Rock on Saturday.
Cool.
Let's see, and I will also be going to tomorrow to that elder abuse thing for the luncheon portion of it anyway. But that's all I have.
Thank you.
We received the pull station, the initial study for the pull station curve correction. This has been supported by the board, except it was a larger project, and of course the Council of Governments. I would at least, Tom, like to make sure that I think our board should write a letter of support for this project, separate from the COG. So if the board has no problem with that, maybe I can get, comments have to be in on the 13th. How could that, it's a Sunday. Well, whatever the due date, maybe we can write a letter for Bill's signature on support of the curve correction. We have had public meetings on this at the COG, and if there's board support, I'll take care of that. Yes, 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 yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to be at the elder abuse function tomorrow also at Couts. Yeah. Are you?
But I'm not announcing it. It's not a board-appointed committee. It's a
gonna
public
be
committee.
5 of us there.
It doesn't matter. It's
Matters to
public.
me.
It's a public
It
meeting.
matters.
Do whatever you like. I'm going to be there too, but I'm not telling anyone.
All right.
Yeah, me too, and I'm not telling anybody. It doesn't matter.
You know what,
I guess that
folks?
separates us into the curmudgeonly and
I think this party's over. Oh, I'm sorry. Tom Mitchell?
Thank you. A couple of quick items of note. We're watching the weather for this weekend. If the weather doesn't go bad on us on Friday, we'll be sealing all the parking lots in the government center. We'll be limiting access. We want it to be sunny on Saturday, so there may be limited access to the government center this weekend. Want to let you all know that Mike Miller will be scheduling meetings with you regarding Prop 40 and some of your constituencies. We're trying to get some resolution on a number of issues there. I did tour the Sandy Gulch area with Steve on Friday, and I think it has great potential to be a future regional park for the county, and we're going to take a look at what we can do to make that happen. Parks and Recreation, we have scheduled that presentation for, I think it's May 15th. You'll be hearing the report from the Parks and Recreation Task Force. I think in my opinion, and some others that I've talked to, this is probably something this citizens group has done for us that probably we would have had to spend as much as $40,000 developing through a consultant. I think you'll be extremely pleased at the product that this task force has done. It is an outstanding job and extremely professional, and I think that you'll be pleased with the results that you see on the 15th.
Tom, I believe that document was completed yesterday, and the hope of the group was that it be distributed to the board, so they got a couple of weeks to look at it. So if there's a way we can accomplish that.
We did get those copies. There was a problem with the formatting on some of the charts, and the Mason is working on reformatting those, and we'll get those out as soon as we can get those attached charts. It will also be available on the county's website. We'll be putting it out there as an item of interest. And then the final thing I wanted to let you all know, because Marita will beat me with a stick, but we have a series of addendums we'll be issuing on Thursday for next week's board agenda, one of which we've been working for a long time, having to do with the courts transfer agreements. It's significant. We've got an agreement with Department of Corrections that the sheriff is working on. These are all time-critical, sensitive issues. I wouldn't give them to you in addendum if they weren't, but they're all becoming ripe on the tree at the same time, so we have to move quickly to get those done. So I just wanted to apologize and let you know you'll see a series of addendums. I will be gone on Friday. I'm assisting San Joaquin County in picking their new government center under a design-build contract. Give you an idea of scale. For those of you always thinking about buildings, they're getting 38 parking spaces and offices, and that project is currently estimated at $93 million. And there's a group of us that will be assisting them in that process on Friday. It's a 12-hour marathon to make a recommendation to their Board of Supervisors. But things are expensive out there in the real world when you talk about facilities.
Mr. Jones?
Nothing to the report.
Okay. Tom, did you have more? Sorry.
I have put a request in for lunch, and so I'll be bringing those orders around in a second.
Okay, thank you. Maddie, anything? Okay, this meeting's adjourned.